biggest financial catastrophe in generations began in the US and spread across the world.
This is a once-in-a-half century, probably once-in-a-century type of event.
What would happen if, for instance, there was a capital strike on the balance of payments against Australia? How would that work through? What would be the consequences? How would you deal with that? What if there was sovereign default? The country went bust.
There were fears of a run on Australian banks.
And I received a call on the Saturday from the CEO of one of the largest second-tier banks in Australia. And he said, I'm ringing you to let you know that our single largest depositor is going to withdraw their funds.
You create an incentive for them to basically go to crazy extreme lengths to drum up business.
It's almost impossible to quantify the losses caused by the GFC. In the US alone, the cost to GDP is estimated at more than $13 trillion US.
Ouch, what a week. Everything's going all across the board. A lot of banks are collapsing. Canada is nationalised 5 of the main banks here and is guaranteeing deposits. But it's okay guaranteeing my deposits, but they're still holding the line. They've increased it now. You can take $50 out a day, and they're passing emergency legislation about debt recovery and utility payments and all that sort of thing, trying to make it so the system's working. But the system really isn't working. Everybody's freaking out. And I just wanted to show that stuff from Australia, because Australia at least seems to be on their mainstream media telling people the truth. It's really bad. Banks are failing and the government needs trillions, quadrillions of dollars to pump into the system to keep the system going. But it's a pyramid. It's a pyramid and the base has collapsed. There is no confidence in the market. There's no confidence on the high street. This is really bad.
This is great if you own shares, not so great if you don't. And of course, the vast majority of Americans own a trivial amount of shares. It's the wealthy who benefited. So the Federal Reserve has amplified the inequality caused by the crisis itself.
So you say this happened until breaking point. What is breaking point, Steve?
Well, the breaking point is when the debt bubble, which actually drove the inequality, came to a crashing halt. You don't get this level of asset prices with that leverage driving up the asset prices. And American private sector debt rose from about 50% of GDP to 170% over the post-war period. It hit the breaking point in 2007, and we saw a 20% fall on that debt level. That's what drove the market down. The plunge in credit drove the market down, which Bernanke and co still don't understand. So that's what gave us the crisis. That was the breaking point. And what the Federal Reserve has done is actually tighten the rubber band once more, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens when quantitative tightening takes the place of quantitative easing.
We're going to get out to 2020 and the world's going to end.
Yeah, well, I think I disagree with Noel on the world ending in 2020. I think there'll be a recession in 2020 because the Federal Reserve doesn't understand this stuff still.
Where does this leave me? I have cash, but it's plastic. Plastic cash in Canada, quite pretty. But the problem with this is it doesn't mean anything if nobody accepts its value. And the value of this is plunging. Now, as a prepper, sometimes you have to make hard choices, and I made a hard choice this week. And frankly, it's caused a huge amount of family problems. I cancelled the Shire build. We were building a house, a passive solar house in the Shire to help proof ourselves against climate change and to have a beautiful place in the country to retire to. And simply put, I can't guarantee that this house will sell. I can't guarantee this house will sell at sufficiently above what I needed to do to fund the other place. The other place was going to cost around about $600,000, and pretty much all of that was being funded out of this. So we've lost about $40,000 by cancelling, but we cancelled. And of course, people like us cancelling is going to make this recession into a massive depression. And it's obvious that's what's going to happen. But at the same time, I can't sit down, take on $500,000 of debt and hope that I can pay it off. Work's not guaranteed, salaries aren't guaranteed. The basic value of everybody's currency is not guaranteed at all. It is plastic. At least you can make glasses out of them. Where's all this going to go? I don't know. But I do know that we are going to try and help the couple that's at the Shire to renovate as much as we can afford to do so. And we are going to keep working as hard as we can and try and accumulate money for as long as we can. But I'm trying to translate that money right now into hard goods. Beans and rice, propane, good quality clothing and boots. All that stuff we have to some degree, but I'm really looking at this as maybe this is a near-term disaster and a long-term SHTF. Yeah, the world's not going to end in 2020, I agree with the guy, but it's going to be very unpleasant, and I don't want to have debt. So what I also did this week was I took some money that I have for the Shire build and I paid off as much of the mortgage as I could on this place. So the mortgage for this place is now at a trivial level. And even with the stock market collapses across the globe and the continuing pressures on the stock markets, I'm fairly confident we can cover the mortgage as it exists. I don't think many people out there can say that. They're caught in a debt trap. They have debt, they have to pay the debt, or they lose their assets being their home. And for a lot of us, without a home, we ain't going to work. And a lot of people are losing jobs. There's been major sweeping cutbacks right across the board all week.
We're not extravagant people.
It was just these unforeseen things that we use the credit card for.
The credit card offers kept coming in the mail.
It's so easy to have a credit card and put it on credit and not even think about it because you're not using any money at all. But you are.
Before you know it, it just hit me like a bomb. We were hitting at just over $85,000 on 5 credit cards. He was 61.
What am I going to do?
We were both 61.
What are we going to do?
Well, luckily I learned my lesson in 1990s and I don't have any credit card debt at all. I have a personal loan and all of that stuff that everybody has, but it's currently at zero. And I have a fair amount of assets even after the collapses. But what I don't have is a guaranteed future. I thought my pensions would come in when I retire this year or next. With the stock market collapses, the value of the pensions has shrunk remarkably. And I can't see the government increasing old age pension for me or any of those funds from the government. And yet the cost of living is going to go through the roof. It already has. We've already seen about a 5 to 10% jump in prices in the grocery store this week. I think an awful lot of people around the world right now are wishing that instead of taking their foreign vacations 2 or 3 times a year and leasing their brand new cars through the 2010s through to the 2019s, I think a lot of those people are wishing they'd stored up cash, paid off mortgages and got rid of all of their debt. Right now there's an awful lot of people who owe an awful lot of money to a whole bunch of companies who the companies themselves are broke. This is an absolute utter disaster.
Things got a little tough, so I had to get a second job. But is this enough? No. I made the money, not enough money to pay my expense. Basically, I fell behind.
Over the last year, I would say that I probably only earned like $5,000 to $6,000. I actually had a bank account, but I don't right now. There was so much things needed, it just got in the negatives.
One of the reasons that a lot of people in Holmes County are still unbanked or underbanked is the lack of jobs.
They need a small dollar loan to make ends meet. There are not many alternatives to payday lenders.
It's about basic needs being met.
So these borrowers are just a temporary fix to a long-term problem, but they provide immediate release to people who need gas and heat right now.
There's a lot of people who need help paying their utilities. We wanted to just try to offer any support that we can. I would say the housing condition is, for the most part, deplorable, but without mobile homes, it'll be a lot of homeless people.
We had water damage. Like they said, we had a pipe that was in the wall that was loose. We sometimes keep our oven on if it circulates through the house.
Until we can start dealing with those issues and making those issues better, predatory lenders will be alive and well.
Because I'm maxed out at the bank, you go to the secondary lender and you get $2,000 or $3,000 just so you can pay out some other bill. I knew the predatory loan was a bad deal. I had the family to take care of too. Car note, taxes, bank bills. If I was to really sit down and put a pencil to it, $200,000 worth of bill and stuff that I had to pay in debt to. Now I'm farming, working, driving the school bus, working, maintaining janitorial at a school, and Just have to pay a little bit at a time, just keep going. Because that's what I've been doing all these years, just hoping for better days.
Well, better days aren't coming. Really bad days are coming. The people at the bottom of the economic pile, they're really going to have trouble. People aren't going to be buying tofu that's processed. People aren't going to be employing people to clean their houses and cut their lawns. People aren't going to be buying cars and having cars serviced as much. People are just really clamping down on expenditures. And everybody who hasn't got guaranteed employment or casual employment, they're pretty much out of work right now. Coffee stores are like empty all the time. Nobody wants to buy expensive coffee. People are buying coffee, but they're buying the cheapest coffee they can get. And this is going to keep accelerating and accelerating and accelerating until we hit rock bottom and we pick ourselves up again as a society. Hopefully this time around we can pick us all up as a society. Certainly it looks really bad from my perspective right now. Like I say, I'm kind of bulletproof myself against debt. I think debt is the #1 enemy of anybody right now. If you've got debt, try and figure out how to get the debt, at least the repayments, down. It's going to be a tough year ahead, maybe longer. And of course the international situation's looking pretty dire as well, because every single country of the world, including Saudi Arabia, strangely enough, is having a huge problem. Everybody is broke. One could argue if everybody's broke, nobody's broke, but that's not how it's going to work for me and you. Maybe for the banks, but not for me and you. Anyway, I'll update next week. I'm kind of getting a bit bothered about what's going on in terms of the international situation. People are saber rattling. The South China Seas is getting really congested with American vessels and Australian vessels, and of course the Chinese who claim they own it. But let's face it, who owns the seas? Nobody. But who owns islands you build in the sea? People that build the islands. But Vietnam and a few other countries disagree, and China is in no mood right now to be told what to do, either militarily, economically, or in terms of its sovereignty. With over 1 billion people facing an economic collapse that most people under the age of 35 have never experienced and did not believe would happen, China's got a lot of problems, as do we all. See you next week. Stay safe. Make smart financial decisions. Bye.